Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I think we need to be straight with the American people as to what's happening here. And let me just comment, if I could, on your suggestion that there be consequences for people who enter multiple times and how that would address the problem. I think it's fine to have consequences, but that's not the issue. Agent, you just told us that you're preparing post-Title 42 not for people to have consequences for multiple entries, but for more asylum seekers, didn't you? That's what you just told us, right?
For those that come to the port of entry and make an application for asylum, yes, sir.
So you're expanding your capacity to deal with asylum. That's what's going to happen. I mean, the alternative to Title 42 is not that people are going to stay home. The alternative to Title 42 is that they're going to do what they cannot do now because of Title 42, which is apply for asylum. Do you disagree with that, Agent?
Sir, I don't think I understood your question.
What's the alternative to Title 42? It was suggested by Mr. Nunez Neto a second ago that the alternative to Title 42 is that repeat offenders in particular are not going to come over because they'll have consequences. The alternative that you stated is that you're going to have more people coming and applying for asylum. That's what you're preparing for, right?
Sir, we're prepared to allow whoever comes to the country, they can afford the access to our asylum system if they have a right to do so.
Right.
That's what we're required by law.
You're going to increase your capacity for it. That's what's going to happen, right?
Yes, sir. We intend to increase our capacity to process
but
whatever
answer my question, and let's just be honest here with the American people. Right now, Title 42 is the ability for you to say to about 1 million people a year, we're going to turn you back. And by the way, they aren't turned back to Mexico in cases where they're not from Mexico. You actually process them for roughly 40 hours, then you send them back to their country of origin. It might be Ecuador. So it's not what was described, and those people obviously are less likely to be repeat offenders because they're thousands of miles away. But what you are saying is that without Title 42, you're going to have a lot more people who come to the border and say, I have a credible fear, and like others, they'll be allowed to come into the country. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. So, I mean, guys, we can talk about this and try to play politics with it and say the administration has all these plans and consequences matter, but the reality is we have an asylum system that is broken, and until we fix that, it's not going to be solvable post-Title 42. That Title 42 is not sustainable. I get that. It's a public health authority. It's not meant to be an immigration law. But it's all we have right now to keep the system from being totally overwhelmed and to keep not just 1 million people being released into the country every year who come unlawfully, claim asylum. Remember, 85% at the end, at least of Mexicans and Central Americans that we know of, are not given asylum, and yet they are not deported. The numbers we have are that there are 1.2 million migrants who have received a final order of removal, and we are removing 56,000 a year right now. That was the number in 2021, and that is less than 5%. So that's the issue, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I wish it were easier, but it's hard because we have to deal with the asylum issue. Mr. Nunez Neto, you were on this committee. You know this issue well. Do you disagree with anything that I've said?
Sir, I think it is clear that under current law, migrants who arrive at the border have the opportunity to claim asylum, and as a department and as a country, we enforce those laws. I think, as the Secretary noted yesterday,
let's just back up for a second, if you could, please. And I apologize, but we don't enforce the laws in the sense that what the laws say is that we're supposed to detain people pending the process of asylum, and we don't do that. We don't have the beds to do that. The expedited removals, in fact, in the budget for this year are reduced even further, specifically with regard to detention, which is mandated by law. So we don't do that, and we can't do that. You know you can't do that. We don't have the space, right? We have 24,000 beds. We're talking 1.2 million people who have been put into expedited removal. Is that correct?
I don't think we have ever had enough beds to detain everybody through the process, sir.
Maybe we haven't ever had enough beds, but isn't that the reality?
Yes, sir. We do not have enough detention capacity to hold everybody who's.
According to
next to that
Secretary Mayorkas, not even close. Not even close to. I mean, we have 7,000 or 8,000 people a day coming to the border right now, unlawfully, and we have 24,000 beds. And because of social distancing, because of COVID, we have fewer beds even than that, I'm told, even though Title 42 is about to expire. With regard to COVID, we're still applying it to the beds. But that's another issue. The problem, I guess, that I'm trying to get at is that unless we fix the asylum system, there's no way to allow you, Agent Huffman, to do your job, and your men and women who I've talked to, and they're the ones that tell me they are scared to death of what's going to happen when Title 42 goes away, because there is no alternative. And the 6 pillars that were just talked about, again, we can go through this, but 1,000 new Border Patrol agents. My understanding is the budget asked for 300, something like that, so I guess you're going to take them from other places, including the border with Canada. In making processing work faster, enhanced processing on buses while people go into the interior, working with non-governmental organizations to process people faster. I mean, all that's fine. All that's fine, but it doesn't deal with the problem. It just puts more people into the system. And Secretary Mayorkas tells us there's a 6 to 8 year wait right now. In other words, the backlog is 1.6 million people waiting for their asylum claims to be adjudicated, and they're in the United States for 6 to 8 years before their case is resolved. Is that correct?
Sir, it is correct that people who are not detained on average take 5 or 6 years to go through the ER process. I would note, sir, if I may, that we have tried to tackle the asylum process through the asylum officer rule by executive action, but we would welcome a bipartisan effort on the Hill to work on this important issue.
Well, I would too, and there are ideas out there that are, I think, very promising. One would be to have an expedited adjudication process at the border. Senator Sinema was here earlier. She and Senator Cornyn have a proposal along those lines with processing centers. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's going to be expensive, but it's absolutely crucial to me that the last people coming in are the first people who are told, we understand that your country has issues and that the economics are a real problem. You look at the Migration Policy Institute here, indicates that between 75% and 91% of migrants who are coming to the border are coming for economic reasons. We get that. That's why the asylum policy is leading to adjudications of only 15% being accepted from the majority of these countries. So we've got to make that decision early, send people back home if they don't qualify, allow them in if they do, and that is what will send a message to the traffickers and to these families that it doesn't make sense to make this arduous and dangerous journey north. So I would love to work on that, but that's not what is being proposed here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ranking Member Portman. And just want to, if I clarify, maybe to put this simplify it a little bit as we discuss some solutions here, is when we talked about the consequence system, that really deals with the single adults that are coming across who aren't going to be able to, they aren't applying for asylum. They're just trying to get across the border. Under 42, they just get sent back, no consequences. They keep coming back. It drives those numbers up for those individuals. And so, well, most of them don't. It's they're just coming across from Mexico, and they're not going to be able to go through that process. It's going to be very difficult. Then there are the asylum seekers. You're absolutely right about that. That we have to deal with that process, and that's something Congress has to deal with. We have to come together and fix this, and I'm committed to working with you and others on that. I think we're reviewing some legislation together right now related to that so that we can deal with it, and I look forward to working with you to deal with that aspect of the problem. We got to deal with both of these problems together. I totally agree with you in that respect. I need to go to an Armed Services Committee to ask some questions, so I'm going to turn the gavel over to Senator Carper and recognize Senator Carper for his questions.
Yeah, thanks so much.